On this episode of Beyond the Stats, an update on the MLB. The NCAA makes a policy change, but first, NBA players need to decide whether they're playing or not.
This is Beyond the Stats with Zach and Tanner.
So, Tanner, starting off with the NBA, like we said, both NBA players have until June 24th to make a decision on whether or not they're going to be playing this NBA season. There's just to be honest, the big news about it is some big name players could not play. And what can that kind of mean for this playoffs? And what does that mean for the season as we return for the season, what that kind of means?
Well, with certain teams, I mean, for some, it could mean losing their star players. The one that we know for sure for the Phoenix Suns, Kelly Oubre has made it official that he will for sure not be returning to the NBA. You know, the Suns, a team that's kind of surprising that they still have a shot to make the playoffs, but still Kelly Oubre kind of a big part with that role, along with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. But this could be a difference maker. Obviously, the biggest no-name throughout the NBA right now is Kyrie Irving, which would be a huge loss for the Brooklyn Nets, knowing that even though Kevin Durant has had more time to rest after the injury from last season, he's already made it known that no matter what, he is not going to be playing this season. So it makes a huge difference for certain teams, because if their star players decide, you know, I do not want to play because of what's going on in the world right now, then that's ultimately their decision. And that could affect how their team performs, their overall chemistry levels. So it affects it in so many ways, whether they choose to play or not. But I think it is still the right move, because players have the right to, you know, be a person. If they don't feel comfortable with it, then they have every choice to decide not to play. So it's a really big decision for players, and I'm glad they're giving them a couple more days on June 24th when they have to make that decision.
The thing is, so we talked to, like, Kyrie Irving more than likely seems to not be playing this coming season, or restart of the season, I should say. But what does that mean? But also Dwight Howard's another big name who seems to not be playing. And while Dwight Howard's not Orlando Magic starter, all-star MVP candidate Dwight Howard, he's still really big to what the Lakers do and provides a lot of really good minutes off the bench. So I think that's big too, because really, outside of Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee, who do they kind of have? I mean, Anthony Davis will have to play center minutes. That's they don't have a lot of big men, especially after they traded Zubac to the Clippers a couple of years ago. So it'll be tough to see where that kind of goes, because you have players like Dwight Howard who matter to the rotation of the Lakers, but aren't necessarily like all-star level players anymore who really contribute to teams. So it'll be interesting to see who's missing outside of just the really big names.
Absolutely. And I think it will be. I'm curious to also see the number of players who end up deciding, because that could also lead to, because again, they'll play a couple of games. I mean, the Western Conference, of their 15 teams, the only two teams that won't make it are the Warriors and the Timberwolves. And then for the Eastern Conference, it's only the 8 teams plus the Washington Wizards. So yeah, as you've said, it matters for certain teams, like you said, the Lakers, because they're, as you said, it's not all-star Dwight Howard, or it's not Denver Nuggets JaVale McGee, but I mean, Anthony Davis is going to need to have to come out. I mean, he's human like everyone else. He can't play the entire game, so he's going to have to get a break. And JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard provide great support for him. So as you said, it's not going to just be big-name players, but even guys who come off the bench that make huge impacts. So I just can't wait to see once the season starts, but as of right now, June 24th, so we can kind of see what players have decided that they don't want to play for whatever reason it may be. But no, I can't wait to kind of find out who's going to play and how that affects the team and their chemistry and the coach's game plan for when they have to make adjustments to the season.
Tanner, you're right. We're going to have to wait till June 24th to kind of see how the lay of the land is played, but that could really affect some teams as we restart the season and get back into basketball, especially going into the playoffs, because some teams could miss some really important key players to their rotation or even in the starting lineup, which could really affect championship chances and things like that. When we return, we'll talk about baseball and what the MLB is doing, not only to try to restart the season, but some rule changes coming when we return. This is Beyond the Stats.
Welcome back to Beyond the Stats. I'm Tanner Camp alongside the one and only Zachariah Begley. So, Zach, surprise, we're talking about the MLB again. So earlier this week, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of the Major League Baseball, at first it kind of seemed like we weren't real sure. He went from at one point being 100% sure the season was going, then to not confident. But Zach, the good news is it seems like we're going in the right direction. So originally, it's a proposal was for 60 games that it would start in mid to late July, 19th or 20th was around the date. Expanded playoffs in the 2020 and 2021 season, and a couple other rules that we'll kind of touch with. But so then the players it seemed like everything went well. The players have requested now for 70 games instead of 60, but it kind of seems like based on what we've heard from this, that the MLB is going in a better direction than when we heard that the commissioner was not confident in the MLB. But as you see this deal and kind of think how this week has gone, well, what more can you tell us about where you think the MLB is going? And if you think that now we're actually increasing our chances of having an MLB season?
Yeah, just to start real quick, I would be more than shocked if a season didn't happen at this point, which is crazy because a week ago I was like, there's no way the season's going to start, but they've come a long way in a week. Yeah. So the deal should be, they said 48 hours on Wednesday. So it should, or sorry, not Wednesday, Thursday. And so so we should be expecting a deal probably by the end of the day today. Yeah. So some of the things MLB and MLBPA have finally agreed to 100% prorated. So the latest MLB schedule was 60 games, 100% prorated, and then the MLBPA recounted with 70 games. Obviously, didn't drop the 100% prorated, but they also said universal DH in 2020 and 2021, as well as expanded playoffs in both years, and no ability to file a grievance. So, I'm guessing will probably be. So they want 70 games, 60 games. The logical thing is meet in the middle at 65, call it good. I think 100% prorated will stay. Expanded playoffs makes sense because more games, which means more money for the MLB. So I wouldn't be surprised that happens. And then universal DH, I think that's going to happen in 2020 because I don't think it can't happen in 20. I don't think they can have a season without that happening in 2020, just because my guess is they're going to do some sort of difference in conference and division structuring, like they've talked about. They talked about all the way back in like March and April. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens. And then the final question really is what kind of happens from here? I think a deal gets done at this point. I didn't think a deal would get done even 2 days ago. So clearly they've come a long way in the last couple of days. So, but they're running out of time still. They have to start in July to be able to get the season through and done, and could get the playoffs done in October so they can kind of reset themselves. And I think 65 games will be not a lot of games, but probably just enough. And then a playoff, which I think is expanded, is the smart move. And then that's but the question is, where does the MLB, they have logistics to figure out because they have to start spring training and things like that. So that's really the question, is how quickly can they get the deal done so they can get the ball rolling to get into spring training to get into the season.
And Zach, absolutely. It feels like this deal to try to get the MLB back is like a roller coaster. First we heard, oh yeah, that's definitely going to happen. And I was like with a lot of people, and then like the commissioner said, not confident that it was happening. So we were all kind of getting scared. But again, as you said, not even a week. And all of a sudden now I'm like you, my chances or my thing that it's going to happen is actually very high right now. But as you mentioned, the universal DH, this one's interesting because this had been talked about basically near the beginning of bringing the MLB season back. Do you think this is something, let's say they test it for both this season and potentially even next season, do you think there's any possibility that they could implant the universal designated hitter rule permanently into an MLB season. Do you think that that's a possibility?
I I think it's possible. I mean, the American League already has a universal DH. They've had for years. So it's a question of, does the National League adopt a universal DH? I find it hard to say yes or no. I mean, to be honest, it's kind of an advantage because it's easier to find someone to hit for you every once in a while as a universal DH on your roster than it is to ask your pitcher to hit. Like just to think of the Cubs, for example, the Cubs the last couple of years have had enough outfielders that when they need a DH, they're just plugging Kyle Schwarber at DH. And if he was playing in the American League, he'd probably just be a DH, to be honest. Even though he plays left field for the Cubs, I don't think he would. I think he'd be an everyday universal DH in the American League. So I think NL teams have players that can play DH, and that's a lot easier than asking a pitcher in the American League who literally has to hit once every 3 years to not get out every time they come up to bat against MLB pitchers. Some of them who haven't hit since high school. I mean, yeah. So I think it's an advantage more for the NL to not have a DH, but I also think if NL managers enjoy having a DH, I could see it happening.
And Zach, that's kind of what's going to be nice about this season. They're going to test it out, maybe get some opinions from the managers in the National League to kind of figure out how it worked out and see if they really liked it, if this is something that they would want to stick with for plenty seasons down the road. But I think both you and I can agree we're ready for baseball to come back. It seems like they're going in the right direction. And you already know that once we find out, we're going to let each other know and let everyone know right away because we need baseball back. Sports are starting to come back, and baseball is going to be a big one. When we come back, we're going to talk about the NCAA, and they make a policy change. Again, I'm Tanner Camp with Zachariah Begley, and this is Beyond the Stats.
Back to Beyond Stats, it's Zachariah Begley. Joining me is the one, the only Tanner J. Camp. Tanner, we're talking about the NCAA, and it's expanded its Confederate flag policy, which is preventing any form of postseason play in any state that brandishes the Confederate flag. The interesting thing is the only state it affects right now is Mississippi. So that's big for a number of reasons. But Tanner, just your initial thoughts to start us off about the change in the policy.
Well, Zach, as you said, the fact that the only school that it affects is Mississippi, and now you think to yourself, well, the two big schools obviously are Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And when we think about this, because we've talked about this a little before the show, and then also yesterday, the big school or the big program, in my opinion, would be Ole Miss football, but I would even say Mississippi State women's basketball. I mean, they're usually like one of the top contenders for a championship every year. They're up there with the UConns, with the Texas A&Ms, the Notre Dames. I mean, and that's going to make an impact for them at the very least for this season, depending on how these policies turn out and where they stand and if they can get anything changed. But I just think that it makes a lot more of a difference, especially at that level when it comes to those championship events. So we'll see if Mississippi, both Ole Miss or Mississippi State or any other schools at that level will change. But in my opinion, the first thing I thought of was how it could affect the Mississippi State women's basketball program. That's the first thing that came to my mind.
So based on how the rule was written before, this doesn't change anything for college basketball or men's basketball because the rule has been around for a while that places where the NCAA predetermined championship places, if the state brandished the Confederate flag in some way within their state flag, they weren't allowed to have a championship there. So men's basketball is predetermined, so no championships, and college football. So that doesn't change anything for those programs in Mississippi. But that changes for particularly softball, baseball, and women's basketball, where those places for postseason play are determined by regular season success. So in 2019, both Ole Miss and Mississippi State hosted regional tournaments, And also Mississippi State, because of their women's basketball program, because of how good it is, being one of the best in the country, it also hosted first and second round tournaments of the women's NCAA March Madness tournament. So, I mean, that could. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Mississippi change the state flag fairly soon, because let's be honest, the states are going to be like Ole Miss and Mississippi State are going to be like, look, we want to have championships on our home fields, home courts, because like if you go, say you're the first in your conference, and then you go to regionals and you have the number one record in your regional, but you can't play at home, even though that's the rule because of the separate rule, then you have to go and play on the road instead of playing at home on your own mound, on your own, running your own base pass, shooting on your own baskets. I mean, you're a former athlete. I'm a former athlete. You know how it is. You feel better playing at home than you do on the road. So.
Oh, and absolutely. You're right on the money with that. It makes a huge impact, especially in postseason time. Regular season, you always want to try to win out at home because you should. It's your own home court, your own home field. You're used to it. You've played on it hundreds and hundreds of times. But when you don't get to it in postseason play, it's important because, for different circumstances in baseball, if it's a couple, or softball, it's a couple games and you're out. But like in basketball, for some of them, one game and you're out. So postseason matters that much more. Being able to host in those big games makes an impact, especially with the success that all those programs have. So, I could see them changing, but again, with, I'm not really sure for where they're going to put their athletics compared to their preferences or their beliefs. So we will see with this. Hopefully we'll get an update on this to see if the state decides to change their mind. But again, huge impact for both Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
The other thing that I think is quite big, I won't say this. I'll say this. I think what the NCAA did is good. I want to end on that. I think in 2020 there's no place for the Confederate flag anymore. It's a flag representing traitors. Just to go on fact alone, it's a flag representing a group of people who seceded from the United States in a form of traitors, in a form of being traitors. And I think the flag shouldn't be represented in, let alone personally, I don't think it should be represented, especially as a governmental organization in any way, like Mississippi does with it part of their flag. Obviously, it's not the full flag, but a part of the flag. Like, I just like getting away from whether someone should do it personally. I don't think it should be flown by any government at any level in the United States, for sure.
Like, again, this whole situation is super tricky, but I definitely see where you're coming from with this. So again, we'll just have to wait and see where Mississippi puts their priorities at, and if anything changes with that from, again, where they believe to their athletic programs, especially with the success that they've had, and just based on their history over the last few decades. So I'm like you, I have personal things about it, but most importantly is just how important is the athletics to all those schools and to the entire state of Mississippi. So again, something that to just keep an eye on, and we'll definitely keep everyone updated as the story kind of keeps unfolding.
Yeah, it'll be, like you said, it'll be interesting to see what kind of happens. That's all we have for you today. Check us out where you listen to podcasts. We're on most podcasting sites, pretty much all major podcasting sites, obviously at Beyond the Stats, on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Beyond the Stats. We post stuff almost every day. We post discussion questions, and we post video clips on Facebook as well. And then on YouTube, of course, Beyond the Stats. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our content.
So until next time, this Tanner Camp alongside with Zachariah Begley. We also want to wish all the fathers from both Zach and myself a happy Father's Day. Once again, Tanner Camp with Zachariah Begley. This has been Beyond the Stats.